What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Simple Songwriting. It's been a hot minute, but I am back. This is going to be a little bit more of a chill episode just so I can get back into the swing of things. And in the spirit of that, we're doing a song from my favorite band, Avenged Sevenfold, and we're doing the song Magic, their most recent song. It was released in December of 2025, and you know, it's an interesting song. I think there's some good stuff. There's definitely some bad stuff, unfortunately. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna do, if you've never listened to an episode, we do a full, or I do a full breakdown, all the way through and throughout the song in chronological order. And we'll just talk about every element of the song and try to take as objective of a lens as we can. And yeah, just analyze the song. So I guess just maybe first things first, if you were listening and you noticed that I was away for a while, welcome back. It's good to be back. I did get some feedback about doing lyrics before I do the music breakdown. I'm a guitarist, and so whenever I look at a song and I'm thinking about a song for the first time, or when I'm like analyzing a song, I almost always go for the music first, but I think that most people actually do lyrics, so I'll try to start doing lyrics first, and I think that might help people a little bit more with the analysis. Then we're just going to try to get back into consistent uploads because work gets busy around this time of year, spring, and so now that that's all done, I think I can get back into the swing of things. So without further ado, let's start talking about the song. So yeah, Magic was a song that they did for Call of Duty. I didn't look up exactly which Call of Duty it was. I don't really play Call of Duty, but it's another collaboration with Call of Duty. They've done a few songs with the guys at, is it Treyarch? I think it's Treyarch, whatever it is, that team. I don't think that this song is quite as good as the other ones. I think Not Ready to Die is the best Call of Duty song they ever did. But then they also did the Jade Helm, which is really more of a soundtrack, and then Carry On, which I think was back in like 2013 or 2014. This song Magic is very weird, and it's gotten extremely mixed reactions. I know a lot of people are very not happy with it. They don't like it at all. In large part, I think to the mix. I think the mix is one of the most controversial things. We'll talk about that because I think that there's some good things to the mix, and then there's some bad things. And unfortunately, I think it's mostly bad, but we'll dive in more detail later. I do think that I don't think it's quite as bad as everyone's made it out to be. And I actually think that there's some stuff in it that's really good. So overall, it's just kind of in the middle for Avenged. But yeah, it's definitely a cool song. It's definitely an interesting song. And so yeah, I think that there's some legitimate critiques to be made, but it's not quite as bad as I think everyone's made it to be. I think it's just weird. It's a weird song. They've been experimenting the past few albums, and I would almost rather get something like that, something that's a little more experimental, than get something, run of the mill that, is done a million times. So, but it's easy to say all of that without actually looking at the song. So without further ado, let's actually get into the song breakdown. So let's start. Yeah, so right off the bat, we have these like quarter note, like very choppy, like I wouldn't even call them guitar chugs, but they're almost like guitar chops, like chun, 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 chun. Yeah, let's hear that again. Super weird, kind of a weird way to start. I mean, it's a cool way to start a song, right? But it's a very static, very mechanical way to begin a song. So we're already kind of starting off on like a weird, stiff note. Like it feels very like stiff, like G, 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 G. And then we get into this kind of the real intro here, which is right here. So yeah, there's nothing really crazy going on here. It's a pretty standard like 16th note groove. Just it is in I think G harmonic minor, which is pretty normal for Avenged. Again, this isn't really crazy, but it does sound very mechanical and very robotic, which I think will come into play later on. Hold on, give me one second. So yeah, I don't think it's like the most spectacular thing, but I do think that there's a lot of cool sounds in the background if you listen. Just chaotic noises. It sounds like machinery in the background. So I think right off the bat there is a heavy like mechanical element to this song, which I think is important, and it'll come into play as we get further into the song. Now that groove keeps playing as the vocals come in. So right off the bat, I think the mix is noticeable right off the bat. It's very harsh. It's very dry. On all the instruments, the drums can almost barely be heard. The guitar is, it lacks a whole lot of beef. Maybe just for example, I can play you guys, hold on, just so you can hear this compared to, say, like Nightmare, right? Hear how full that sounds and how big that sounds? And now, oh, nope, I gotta go back. Hear how that sounds so dry. So there's a harshness to this mix. Now this is something they've been doing since, well, they really kind of started doing this drier mix type of thing when they were with The Stage. Hold on one second. Does that go up? Okay. When they did The Stage, but it sounded more of like I think for The Stage, they were going for a more human mix, but they really dove into this earthy, dry mix type of thing when they were making Life Is But a Dream. So they're continuing with that here, but it is very noticeably dry, very noticeably harsh. And then the vocals keep that exact same vibe. So there's like no reverb on the vocals. There's no depth to the vocals. They're very much like in your face, like at the front of the mix. There's also a filter on them, which again, the filter even sounds like it's taking out the bass frequencies. So it sounds like it's coming through a speaker or something. Listen to those sounds in the background. Okay, and I'm doing it again where I'm not talking about the lyrics. So the lyrics here are smoke in the signals, won't touch the ground, perfect harmony, you can have it all. So I think that at this point, they're kind of implying danger. Like there's something, obviously like a smoke signal implies like we need help. But it's a clever wordplay saying smoke in the signals. Won't touch the ground, perfect harmony, you can have it all. I think that's like the key line here. There's this idea of like danger, but maybe it's disguised as a tempting offer. Like, here, you can have it all right here, perfect harmony, it's all for you. But where it's coming from and what it is still unknown at this point in the song. So yeah, that is it for that first verse, I think. You can have it all. Okay, so we get the sections here are a little funky, but I consider this the pre-chorus. And so he says, living, always, always dying. I think that, so lyrically, this kind of comes off as like a third person observation. It's hard to tell exactly what this means without looking at the full context of the song, but spoiler alert, I think this is an observation about like life and mankind in general. Just sort of this broad idea that humans are just always living and always dying. It's sort of a blasé, that's not the word. It is the word, but it's not a good word. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, an indifferent. It's like an indifferent look at humans and how they behave and their existence essentially. And I think it's kind of undercut by, or not undercut, but enhanced by the effects that they have. There's like some crazy mechanical effect happening here, like a filter on his vocals. And especially the end there. I mean, it just devolves into like machine noises. It's actually really cool. I think it's one of my favorite things about the song. I think it's actually a really cool like thing they did with the vocals there. But yeah, so I think that, and I actually think that it works with the idea of the song, or we don't know the idea yet. We're not there yet. But what I would get from it is that there's maybe something sinister here, like that, no pun intended. This is actually very like this character or this voice who is making the third person observation about humanity maybe doesn't have the best intentions and might not be, good, so to speak. Musically speaking, the guitars are actually just doing the same thing, except instead of chugging like the 16th notes, they're just playing the exact same thing with chords. So it's like dum 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 dum. Listen for that here. The drums, I want to say let me see. Yeah, they switched to a more open thing. Still with the double bass, the kick, but honestly, it is so hard to hear the drums in this song. It's a big shame. It's one of my biggest complaints of the song. But again, I don't want to get too much into the mix yet. But the drums are so quiet that you can barely hear them. But they are doing some pretty cool stuff there. Just the double kick and then the cymbals on the same accents that the chords are hitting. And yeah, I think that's it for this section here. Just living, always, always dying. Hold on, losing my spot. Okay, let's keep going, and we'll go into the chorus, what I consider the chorus. Cool. So this chorus is a bit weird, but it's grown on me a lot, and it might even be my favorite part of the song. So I think, so the lyrics first off are, but you wouldn't listen, or maybe incapable, but that doesn't matter. And then there's like a little line at the end saying, into the sun. Kind of a weird line. We'll get to it. But to me, it comes across as kind of condescending and almost a bit resigned, as if this person who's speaking, because I think this is a continuation of the same voice from the pre-chorus where they're saying living, always, always dying. This entity speaking to them is sort of just giving up on the human race. It's like, you wouldn't listen, or maybe incapable, like saying humanity is incapable of listening. And at this point, it doesn't matter. The entity, I'm going to just call it the entity for now, has sort of resigned humanity to its fate. And then there's this line at the end of the chorus, which is only here, and it's into the sun. And I think it's one of the biggest clues that we have onto like, okay, what is this song about? I think obviously the sort of obvious interpretation is Icarus into the sun. Like we got too ambitious, right? But I think given the nature of the song, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny to think about it being potentially literal. Like we actually flew into the sun somehow, or nuked ourselves somehow, especially given that I saw the trailer for Call of Duty is set on what looks like a space station that was like fried in the sun or something like that. So I think that there is a little bit of a literal interpretation to be had there. Now, to be clear, I do like to interpret these songs or view these songs. Let me backtrack. When I'm analyzing a song, I do my best to try and look at the song for what it is, like on its own. So I don't like to look at it like, I'm not going to say, oh, well, it fits really great into the Call of Duty narrative. Like, I want to look at what the song is. Now, the only sort of, what would you call it? exception. That's the word. See, this is why I gotta get back into it. I'm like losing my vibe. I can't think of my words fast enough. The only exception to this from like looking at a song on its own is when the song's on an album. And I like to look at albums holistically, so a song can be like a chapter of a book. A song is like the equivalent to a chapter of a book. And so, or a scene in a movie. And so there might be one scene that's like kind of good, but not really super special on its own. But then in the context of the movie, it's like extremely important and very valuable. And so you can have songs on records that might just be a minute and a half long or not spectacular in their own way, but in the context of the record, it's actually very meaningful, very deep, and has much more of an impact. So essentially, I like to just look at the art on its own for what it is. A little random tangent there, but anyway, in this case, I'm not going to take the Call of Duty, I'm not going to think about Call of Duty lore, Call of Duty Zombies lore when I'm analyzing this song. So I think the most obvious interpretation is that this is a metaphorical look at humanity. Maybe we were tempted by something or got too ambitious in our own right, and we flew into the sun, right? And now this entity that is observing us and is the narrator for at least this portion of the song is looking down on us in a condescending way and is actually feeling a bit resigned, as if, we're unsavable, right? So yeah, kind of cool. And again, we don't really know what's going on yet. We just know that there is this. We don't know any of the context behind what I just said. We just know kind of, all right, this is what's going on. Like humanity has basically flew into the sun through its own ambitions. Maybe as we go through the song, we'll figure out what happened. But yeah, that's where we're at for right now. So when it comes to the music for this section, so we get a really cool groove, and I actually, I'm not going to pull out the guitar, but I learned this on guitar, and it's a pretty interesting little guitar section too. It switches to almost like F sharp, no, not F, D sharp harmonic minor, starting on the first fret of the low D string and then going to the fourth, third, and then open 4, 3. So even that, it's almost like a key change, but it kind of does still work in the same key. So it's a funky little thing. Compositionally, it's not spectacular. Just kind of normal notes. Actually, now that I think about it, is it following the same rhythm as the section before? I don't know if I caught that. All right, it's a slightly different rhythm, but and this time instead of chords, it's single notes, which a cool thing about like the single notes on guitar is that they have a little bit more clarity, and so they actually sound less busy. I tell you, okay, one thing to note, I didn't think about this. I got some new lights and stuff, and the glare on my glasses is ridiculous. So I have to use the glasses to see my notes, but I'm going to make a note to start wearing contacts for these episodes so you guys can actually see my damn eyes, because what the hell? I can see myself on the screen and I can't see my eyes. It's like weird, you guys, I look like a dude in an anime, dude in the chair. Anyway, okay. Yeah, the guitars are not particularly interesting here, if I'm being honest. There's aside from the note choices. The drums though, they're doing a really great little groove. If you listen, I think they've got a little cymbal work on the side. Hear that? There's definitely some tom work going on there too, but unfortunately it's damn near inaudible. Yeah, kind of a bummer again. I think Brooks is so good, and I think they did him dirty on this song, if I'm being honest with you, but we'll get into it later. We'll talk about it later. So that's it for the chorus. So let's just keep going into, so let's see how it ends. So yeah, we just do that short little bridge and we kind of just do a reset. Yeah, let's listen to verse 2. Hopes to be happy, I'm nothing at all. The world's buying a thrill, it's all possible. Okay, so musically, nothing's really different here from the first verse. Maybe a few more distorted effects in the background if I listen real close. Yeah, there's definitely like some mid-rangey synths, or I'm hesitant to say that it's synths because it's very likely guitar, just massively put through effects and processors, but it's like a zzzz in the background there. If you listen real closely, it's kind of, again, low to mid-range. Hear that? Hear that? Ooh. So, yeah, I mean, aside from that, aside from some changes and additions to the background distortion, everything else is the same: guitar, drums, and bass. So we can talk about the vocals. So the lyrics here are hopes to be had now, or nothing at all. The world's buying a thrill. It's all possible to think what they want. So again, hopes to be had now or nothing at all. The world's buying a thrill. It's all possible to think what they want. So I think that these provide just a little bit more clarification on what we're talking about. To me, this is technology. I think that it's kind of, you could have inferred that from the first verse for sure, but I think this makes it clear. Like, we're talking about technology. The world's buying a thrill. It's all possible to think what they want. Yeah, I mean, the idea that and if you can imagine a level of technology where you could just think whatever you wanted at any point, and you could just have it. I mean, we're pretty damn close to that already. I mean, the idea that I could just hop on my phone, go to Amazon and say, hey, I need a cable, and it could be here tonight. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so, and I think that also this is kind of combining the ideas that Avenged had on the stage and Life is But a Dream, where there's this sort of, the stage was about technology and the implications of it. Life is But a Dream was like an existential, a look at the human condition from an existential lens. And this is kind of combining those two, like, what are the existential implications of having advanced technology, Also, with this said, or with these lyrics said, it gives me my first theory. This is maybe my theory. I don't know. I don't go through every single. I try to look up generally what people think of the songs before I do a video, but I didn't see anything about this where I think that the implication of the name Magic. Basically, that's what I'm being super long-winded here. I basically think that the title of the song comes from that quote, which is a little bit cliche, but it's like technology of a significant enough level is indistinguishable from magic. Yeah, it's a very played out quote at this point, but it is an interesting idea for a song, and especially considering the topics that Avenged Sevenfold discusses on, their songs and their music recently. It sort of fits, and so it's cool. I can get with it. But yeah, that's I think that's it for verse 2, really. I mean, there's, again, nothing really changed other than the lyrics. So let's get into pre-chorus 2. Love that. I know that the effects, some people were complaining about the vocal effects on this song. I don't give a shit, man. I love that. I think that sounds so cool. Yeah, I think that the verse vocals are a little dry, and the filter that they have on them there it's a little off-putting, but I don't mind it. But I love that pre-chorus vocal. Oh, and sorry, real quick. And that effect too, I like a lot. It sounds like it's some type of a flanger or a phaser. But I like that too. I think it's pretty cool. So far, I don't necessarily have a problem with the vocals, even if they are a bit strange, and I like the vocal effects so far. I want to hear that transition again. Yeah, that's super cool. I think the best one is the last one though, the third chorus. Okay. The second chorus is the exact same thing as before, so we're honestly just going to skip it and we're going to go right into what I call the post-chorus. All right. So, okay. So this section's honestly just a little wacky. The lyrics, actually, I know it's so hard for me. I want to talk about the lyrics after the music. So musically, the drums just switch to blast beats, essentially. I think there's maybe a little bit of variation. I mean, with Brooks, there's always going to be some variation or complication, but like, it's generally just blast beats. It's not blast beats. It's the cymbal is playing and then he's doing something funky with the snare drum. Sorry, my bad. I was wrong about that. Yeah, it's doom 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 something like that. I know that's not exact. I'm not a drummer. Go easy on me. From the guitar end, it sounds like it is just some crazy noises. There's two different parts being played, one in each ear, and they're very distinct. I think it's, let's see, the right ear. Yeah, the right ear is kind of doing like the lower range, like something like that, and then the left ear is like kind of following the vocals. So yeah, no real rhythm guitars happening here, except maybe in the middle. Yeah, there's just a lot of distortion, a lot of crazy. So, and maybe I haven't talked about this in a while, but like all of this music so far feels very mechanical, and it's going to get more mechanical. So it's just a lot of, again, as we get further into the song and we're sort of implying like maybe the song is about technology and the dangers of it and the dangers of the advancement of technology. I think that this idea of like the musical or the machine like music sort of starts to make more sense. I'll talk about that in the next section because it definitely, I think, it starts to become more clear then. But yeah, the music is definitely trying to embody this like machine hell type of vibe. So let's keep going though. Let's talk about the vocals here. Yeah. So the most noticeable thing on the vocals is that they are just extremely abrasive, like very abrasive. There's little to no reverb, staccato phrasing. Na na na. He's like na 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 na. No, 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 no. I honestly think it's a pretty bland melody, and I don't think that he sings it very well. He sings it with kind of a strained voice. Now the thing is like he's done this before, and he's done this especially on Life Is But a Dream, and I understand maybe why he does it, because he did this on Nobody, right? He does it on Nobody on Life Is But a Dream, and the purpose is he is representing a tortured character, tortured someone, right? And so this is, there is a point of view change in this section specifically. We go from that like third person entity observing humanity to this now, I think, is maybe the voice of humanity. And so he switches to this kind of tormented, strained voice. Problem is, it just doesn't really sound good, and the melody isn't really good, and the mix is really not good. So let's listen again. Yeah, and this is one of those scenarios, right, where I think it's always important or one of my favorite things about Avenged is that when they're writing, they write with the theme and the idea of the song like coming first before something like, say, The Rule of Cool, where, you know, a lot of bands basically their whole songwriting philosophy is just the rule of cool. Like, if it sounds cool, put it in the song. Avenged doesn't do that, and I actually prefer it that way. You know, to them, the theme and the idea is much more important. And so for M. Shadows, singing with that strained voice is more important than singing in a way that sounds pleasing to the ear, because specifically he wants this to sound strained and sound tormented. I just think that there is a bit of a line there. You know, I don't know. And this is kind of where with this song. Actually, before we get into it, let me read the lyrics real quick. So he says, "I write for me, nail on my head. I read for me when I'm dead. Unto the road, the golden way, eternal light." So from a lyrical perspective, I actually think these are really great. We're getting into actually like philosophical territory. You know, the idea of like there is a selfishness to this. You know, the I write for me, I read for me, I do things for me. But this character does believe that they are heading towards the golden way, the eternal light, you know. I read for me when I'm dead, unto the road, the golden way, eternal light. So there is a little bit of arrogance here, a little bit of like, you know, selfishness, which I think is the representation of humanity that we're getting in this song, and that we've gotten from the, you know, the entity that was talking about humanity earlier on. But so we're seeing humanity's side. So on one hand, it's like, I actually do, again, this, so now let's talk about what I was saying earlier, where I appreciate this from Avenged. I like that they do this, but it does make it very jarring, and it's not, like it just does not sound good, versus where I feel like on Nobody, when he did this, like if you go and listen to Nobody, the mix was way better. It was, you know, you could hear the drums, you could feel the intensity. Here, the drums are very, very quiet, almost, I mean, damn near almost inaudible. The guitar parts are indecipherable. So we're just drawn to those vocals, and it's like, he's got this filter on him. He's singing the melody. I don't think is particularly interesting either. And so all of those things stacked onto, okay, then on top of that, he's going to sing with this like strained, tormented voice. It kind of just, it all lends itself to a pretty underwhelming section, honestly. In fact, this is my least favorite section of the song. I think that the tempo is a little bit too slow. Like the overall tempo of the song is too slow for this to actually sound intense. And the mix and the way the mix is set up isn't lending itself to like really getting into it. And so it's hard to appreciate the like, and I can appreciate why he did it, but it's just hard to really enjoy it and get into it when there's so many other elements of this section that I think are just kind of a mess. So, yeah, the lyrics are great. I feel like I get why they're doing it or why he's singing it that way, but it just didn't quite land for me. And actually, I don't want to talk about that yet. All right, so now we get into some pretty cool stuff here. So we have, you know, right as our like humanity character is saying, the golden way, eternal light, eternal light, boom. You know, that's like, that's like a rug pull right there. I mean, you know, oh, you fucking thought, you thought you were going down the golden way, the eternal light. And then we end up with this bass hit. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the mechanical hellscape, right? And that's what this whole thing is, this hellish mechanical crazy whammy guitar section. Yeah, so that's where we get some really cool guitar parts from Synyster Gates with that whammy. And yeah, just the whole vibe of this is great. Like there's a whole, like this is, like I said before, the whole song has been mechanical up to this point, but it's really been more of like a build. And then this is like, to me, this is kind of the truth. This is where things become clear, like what is the nature of this setting. And it is a mechanical hellscape, like a technological, hell. And that's kind of the only word I can use to describe it, because that is the song is dealing with philosophical and like, the song is coming at it from a very large view, like a very wide view. And so to describe it as anything else other than like a hell is kind of, I think, wouldn't do it justice. So lyrically, well, actually, so that's the first part of it, which is very musical. Now you get a little bit of the vocals kind of doing the ooh, auto-tuned. I think he says "take for yourself" there, but it's hard to hear him. Yeah, Genius has those lyrics as "take for yourself." I don't hear it, but yeah, I'll believe you. And that does fit, by the way, that does fit the theme, this idea of humanity as being selfish, they're taking, and it's leading to this mechanical shithole. All right, so then we get into the second section where the vocals sing again and the music changes up. Okay, real quick, actually. I'm just going to pause it so I don't get completely obliterated by copyright, though I always do. It doesn't really matter. Here's the next part. Okay, sorry, my Excel was glitching out. Also, my chair keeps losing pressure, and I noticed that I'm going slowly. Yeah, see how much higher I am now? Stupid chair. All right, so lyrically, he is saying, "Take for yourself all the offerings. This time will be the last. Gentle on my mind." And he repeats all the offerings, and he repeats "on my mind." So it's very grim. It's a very grim section. So musically, lyrically, there is almost an element of bliss here. This idea of, like, when I first listened to this song and I heard this section, I was like, what the hell is he doing? Like, what is he doing, M Shadows? Because he's almost singing in like major key. He's singing happy notes and above this mechanical hellscape. But again, this is why I like to do this, and this is why I like to break down the songs, because even going into, because I do notes and I take notes on the songs before I do these videos, and I wasn't even quite sure what all I'd find as I dove into it, but I was like, this makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's like we are talking about humans, people who are selfish and completely indulging to a euphoric level, indulging in technology and the pleasures that it offers. I think they even say, like at the beginning, it says perfect harmony, you can have it all. The world's buying a thrill. It's all possible to think what they want. And so if you imagine, these are humans who are basically getting whatever they want just at the thought of it. So yeah, take for yourself all the offerings. You're just taking. They're taking and taking. And so there is this kind of euphoria to that, that I think he's capturing pretty well, actually. And I actually like. because yeah, I mean, you could even relate this to the position that we're in today. I mean, how many of us sit on our phones for hours and hours just scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and we don't want to be, you know, we think I need to get off TikTok, or I need to get off this. I need to stop, you know, spending so much time on my phone. And we all know, like, we need to spend less time on our phones, and we need to get out there and meet people in the real world and do things in the real world. And yet we all just sit on our phones and we scroll all day, and we spend time online. And it's like, we still do it. And we like doing it. And in fact, we're like, yeah, if I want to spend time on my, you know, watching TikToks at the end of the day, I should be allowed to do it. Why not? And so we can even relate. You know, this song is like a super exaggerated version where it's like, okay, the machines have completely taken over. Sorry, hold on. I'm just looking at my camera. I know I haven't done this. All right. Yeah, it's like the machines have completely taken over, and, you know, the humans are basically heading to extinction. You know, they're flying into the sun, right? And even then, they're still just like taking and all of that. And that the second line, or the last line of this section here, this time will be my last, gentle on my mind. And it's like, I mean, that's an addict. That's an addict talking, basically. But what's that gentle on my mind line is actually a bit eerie. It's, you know, it makes me think of like the Matrix or something, where the machines are basically like, the person isn't even in control anymore. He's like, this will be my last time, you know, just one more hit, one more adventure through the machine hellscape. But then there's this element of like, you're not even in control. Like, so you sort of end up just begging for the machine overlords to be gentle on you and to kind of go easy on you. Because that's really all you can do at this point. You've completely succumbed to this machine hell world. So, you know, I think lyrically and vocally that he's doing a lot here that isn't immediately noticeable when you first listen to the song. But when you inspect it a little bit closer, I actually really like it. And I think that there's a lot of depth here in a short amount of time, like this 2 lines, you know, 2-3 lines. I mean, I think from the end of this section, which is like 2 minutes, 30 seconds into the song. Yeah, about 2:30. And then, yeah, 1:30 was when that post chorus started with the, I write a me, na, 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 this section here. So it's like in a minute, they've been able to do so much with so little. And so I really appreciate that. It's really cool. And I like this section a lot. I think it's a super cool section. So yeah. And again, I think the first time you listen, you're like, why is he singing like that? What is he doing? Like, it does not match the vocals at all, or the music at all. But when you read the lyrics and you understand what he's talking about, it's actually exactly what the song, it fits the song perfect to me. And with it being fully auto-tuned as well, this might be a little cliche, but the idea that, like, yeah, humanity has completely succumbed to the machines, and it's like, so we have to use auto-tune now. It's like, but I laugh at it and I say it's a little cliche, or it's just a little gimmicky, but there is still a purpose to it, you know? They didn't just put auto-tune on it to be random. It was very purposeful. And this is what I like about Avenged. And I don't think that I'm making like some crazy leap in logic, you know, thinking about it that way. I think that we're talking about humanity flying too close to the sun with our technology and with the things that we have, or the things that we create. And so if we wanted to describe or portray what the voice of humanity speaking after it's been fully taken over or fully succumbed to the technology it's created, what better way to do that than by just putting auto-tune completely on the vocals, you know? So it's cool. I like it. I dig it. Yeah, so now I want to talk about, let's switch it up. Let's pause for just a second, because I want to get into a topic, which is the mix. So this is now this section here. to me, this section is very cool because there are just wild guitars all over the place. There's lots of crazy distortion. The drums sound really cool. And unfortunately, you just can't hear a damn bit of it. The vocals are completely overpowering everything. And that gets into this song's biggest issue, in my opinion, which is the mix. So before I start critiquing it specifically, I want to talk about the mix for a second, because I don't think that people really understand, like, I don't think they think about the mix the right way. So let's start at ground one. Like, a record, a song is a work of art. It like not just the composition, not just the notes or the lyrics, but the recording of the song itself is a work of art, like a painting, basically. The mix is an element of that work of art. So it's almost like the canvas that someone would paint on, right? Like, there's a big difference between painting on a landscape canvas versus painting on a portrait canvas, right? I can't, stupid mic. You get what I mean. Portrait, landscape. So there's a difference between that, and choosing your canvas is sometimes, just as important, or one of the most important decisions you make, and it's just as important as what you actually paint on the canvas, right? So the mix is like that. How you mix your song says a lot about the song. A rap song is going to have a very different mix than, say, a country song. And both of those are going to have a very different mix than a metal song. And so the mix is, I think for a lot of people, they just view the mix as like, oh, the mix is just making the song sound good. It's taking these raw recordings. If anyone's ever listened to, I'm not gonna be able to pull it up, but if anyone's ever heard like rappers without autotune, it's like the funniest thing. And so like the mix is, people think the mix is just making them sound good, like putting the autotune on it and mixing, making the bass drum sound like a bass drum and all that. But the truth is that the mix is a tool just like everything else. And it's part of what makes a record what it is. I think when you look back at like the Beatles, right, this was one of the most influential or most important things that the Beatles did was like Abbey Road, for instance, where every song on Abbey Road had a completely different mix with, you even had some songs. I think it's not a huge Beatles guy. I think it's Hey Jude. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's Hey Jude where you know what? I can pull it up. Hold up. Where the drums are 100% in the left ear. It's not Hey Jude. It's I think it's Come Together, actually. Okay, so if you listen to that, if you're listening to this on speakers or on headphones, listen for the drums. The drums are only in the right speaker. And you have the bass in the left speaker. With the vocals in the middle. So you see, that's a very interesting decision for a mix, right? Very interesting. Hold on, I'm pulling Magic back up just so I don't. Okay. So the thing that's cool about an artist like the Beatles, and this was the perspective that people used to have, was that the mix was part of the artistic process. And so it wasn't just, oh yeah, just do the standard thing with the mix and then just that's done. The mix wasn't just about making the song sound good. It was an element of the artistic expression. It was an artistic tool. And so Avenged Sevenfold has absolutely taken to this recently. I say recently, the past 10 years. I mean, really with the stage, they started doing this because they if you listen to the stage, they started doing weird things with the mix, like putting vocals only in the left and then guitar all the way in the right or something like that. Here, listen to this. Here, that guitar is fully panned to the right. And then the vocals come in and they're only on the left. Hear that? Okay, so just just want to keep my place back at Magic. So right, so that was from Exist, and yeah, so Avenged Sevenfold has taken to using the mix, and the mix includes like where the panning spectrum, where a musical element is on the stereo spectrum. Is it all the way on the right? Is it in the middle? Is it in the left? Is it moving all around like crazy? But it's also how dry it is, whether there's a lot of bass in the song, or whether, you know, it's very choppy and distorted, you know, or is it harsh, or is it very smooth and bubbly, you know, like Polyphia, for example, has a very bubbly, smooth mix. So anyway, Avenged Sevenfold has begun using the mix as an artistic tool. Part of this means that there's going to be some strange, off-putting, it's not going to just be normal. They're not just doing a stock mix, because at this stage in music development, like creating a record, mixing a song has become like, I mean, you can basically put a song through AI and it could probably mix it for you at this point, right? So or it can get you like a stock mix, because it's become so, what's the word? It's so systematized. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's a very systematized process, mixing a song nowadays, especially rock and metal, because rock and metal has been around so long. So yeah, when Avenged Sevenfold does something with a weird mix like this, I think it's important to understand that they have the perspective that the mix is an artistic tool. And so anytime I hear something funky with the mix, like on this section, like when the vocals are, you know, overpowering and they sound weird, and my first instinct is to question why. Why would they have done that? Now, in this case, unfortunately, I don't know if I quite have an answer here. I understand maybe why they put the auto-tune on the vocals. I understand why they make the guitar sound really harsh and mechanical, but I don't quite know why they would mix the drums so low and the vocals so loud. In fact, you know, going with my interpretation of the section, which is that humanity is sort of lost in this mechanical hellscape, it doesn't even really seem to fit, because humanity, the human voice that's being tormented by the mechanical hellscape is just way higher than it's like above everything else. It's on top of everything else, where I would expect it to be almost drowned out by all the mechanical shit, you know? Like it's sitting on top of everything. And I just, again, given what the song is talking about, which is, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not quite sure why they did this. On top of that, M Shadows has a divisive voice. A lot of people don't like his voice. They think it's too thin, too whiny. You know, and he definitely doesn't sing like a normal metal singer. He's my favorite singer of all time. I love his voice, but they're mixing it about as poorly as possible. You know, it really, they're playing to all of his weaknesses as a singer with this mix. So I'm kind of not sure what they're doing here. Now, they would never come out and say why they did this, why they mixed it. I mean, maybe they would at some point. But I don't, unless they did that, I just don't know. I can only really speculate. And I don't think that they would ever do it just to say like, oh, it's bad just to be bad, or it's a bad mix just to be bad on purpose. It's like, they don't usually do that. There's usually a reason. And they're good enough musicians that you can kind of infer like, okay, what was going through their heads when they made it. But even then, so I guess let's just say that they were to come out and give an explanation. Even then, I think you should scrutinize that explanation. So for example, if they were to say, I took a note on this because it's an interesting thought, right? Let's say that they did have a reason why they put the vocals like this, you know, and they said, oh, well, we wanted the blissful voice to distract from the dark machine world or whatever. Then I guess at that point we could analyze it and see, but at this point, I don't know. I guess just in general, I guess I'm making 2 points. One, the mix is an artistic tool, and when you have an artist who actually acknowledges that and uses it as an artistic tool, you're going to get some instances where where it's divisive. I think a good example of this would be Metallica as well. You know, Metallica is notorious, in fact, for doing weird, crazy mix things with their albums. And so you get stuff like And Justice for All, where there's no bass, or you get Saint Anger where the snare sounds like shit, or you get Death Magnetic where they overcompress it, right? But and everyone can say, oh man, why do they keep doing this to all their albums? But then you get something like the Black Album, which basically revolutionized mixing for rock forever. I mean, bands still basically use the Black Album template for mixing their albums or for mixing records. I mean, just generally speaking. So there is, there's risk and reward, right? I mean, anytime you're taking an artistic risk, or you're taking like a leap with the tools that you're given as an artist, there's going to be an element of risk there. And in this case, I think maybe they had a vision, Avenged had a vision for this and what they wanted from the mix and why they wanted the vocals to be so loud and jarring. But I'm not getting it, and I'm probably analyzing this song more closely than most people. And in this case, it kind of just sounds like a rushed mix to me. It just sounds like maybe they didn't have enough time to finalize it, or I don't know. So that's it. I mean, it's just an interesting thing to think about. Like when you treat the whole sound of the record as something to be manipulated and worked on to fulfill an artistic goal or vision, the mix is part of that, and sometimes it just doesn't work, and I don't think it works here, and I can't even come up with a thematic reason of why. So yeah, there we go. That is pretty much that. Okay, let's play the next section. So we end this section lyrically with "This time will be my last, gentle on my mind." So he's asking for the robot overlords. That's just what I'm going to call it. But asking for the robot overlords to go easy on him as he perishes. So let's see. Hold on, sorry. Okay, let's let that play out. Let's see what happens. All right, real quick before the vocals come back in. Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear they are not going gentle on his mind. Please go easy on me. Oh, like, all right. Okay, I'm gonna let it play. Okay, cool. So yeah, this section, pretty cool little breakdown thing. Yeah, so we go back to those heavy quarter notes from the intro, those like staccato, like chun, 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 chun. But this time they actually just keep going straight through, and the drums follow them too. The drums are almost just a bop, 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 bop. It's kind of cool, actually. It's a pretty cool little, I like, it's a cool breakdown, and it's a little unconventional, but it's also very simplistic too. But again, mechanical. Like we're out of that kind of like mechanical hell thing, and now we're like, this section to me almost sounds violent. Like this is like mechanical violence, you know? So what's interesting about the drums there is that the snare is he's doing like a light snare tap on every single note. So it's kind of like a blast beat, but it's like a very staccato blast beat, just cha 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 cha. But then here in this next section, listen to the drums real quick. He switches to the putting the snare on the 2 and the 4. You know, so he actually does create a beat there, but everything else keeps going like chun 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 chun. So it's kind of you almost can't even tell. I didn't tell the first time I heard it, but he does do a bit of a weird beat. Yeah, the guitars just keep doing that jun 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 sing. Okay, so the vocal effect here I think is great. That this crazy thing here, right? Like that just sounds awesome, and I think that's super creative. And in fact, I do want to let me get back to it. So yeah, the lyrics. Let's talk about the lyrics in this section right here. Okay, so he's saying all the light we cannot see, sky of gold mysteries, stairway up, set us free, beyond the skies, the master key. So lyrically, this is in like stark contrast to what we got before. So just as a reminder, before we went into that bridge section, the lyrics were, I write for me, nail on my head, I read for me when I'm dead, unto the road, the golden way, eternal light. There is this idea that humans, the humans were very selfish and arrogant, and we're heading the golden way, the pathway to eternal light. And now the first line here is all the light we cannot see, sky of gold mysteries. So they have abandoned that. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Yeah, it's done. What they thought was the eternal path to light was absolutely not that at all. Yeah, and at this point, then, you know, it's not there. They've basically given up on that. The sky of gold is a mystery to them. Now they're saying, stairway up, set us free, please. They're begging to be set free. They're screaming to be set free. I mean, the way he's singing this is very, you know, it is a strained scream, but this time it feels much more purposeful, as if they're crying out in pain, which makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think, again, this is one of those times where he changes his voice and he changes the tone of his voice to portray the emotion of what is supposed to be felt here, not just to sing what sounds good. And in this case, I think he nailed it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I think the only line here that might be... Well, okay, so the first three lines are pretty obvious, but when you get to that last line, beyond the skies, the master key, I think that's a pretty interesting line. And I think that that's kind of I think it's a little bit of it's definitely a line that's open to interpretation, for sure. And I think that you could reference that to many different things. I think it could be like some type of philosophical revelation, like, obviously God is an implication, like, you know, the master key to life is God, whatever it is, whatever the master key is, it's beyond the sky. You know, so that sky of gold that they were talking about, the eternal path, the golden way to eternal light. I think that they're saying, like, beyond that was the master key. I think that master key line is kind of interesting. It's, I mean, the implication is Zelda. Like, I just always think of Zelda when I think of a master key. And I know M Shadows is a big Zelda fan, so I don't know, maybe there's a Zelda. Maybe he threw that in there just as like a video game reference, since this is for Call of Duty. But regardless, basically this section is about, you know, humanity recognizing that they're doomed and they give up on all the light. They can't see the light. The sky of gold is a mystery to them. They're begging to be set free, and they recognize that it was something beyond the sky, something beyond what they envisioned, that was actually the key to what they wanted or what they were looking for. Yeah, a bit grim, definitely a bit grim, but pretty awesome. And so, yeah, I want to talk about this. I want to take just a quick aside on this as well. Yeah, this section to me is very, very visual. It's very visual. I can imagine people just being trapped by technology and tortured. If any of you guys have ever seen the Animatrix, like, there's some brutal stuff in there with like the machines experimenting on humans. And I imagine that, like, that's what I imagine here. And so, yeah, I think that like people being tortured and begging to be set free. And I think that Avenged Sevenfold was able to portray that here in a way that's very tasteful, but also not in a way that's gruesome and brutal, but also tasteful, like not so gruesome that it's like off-putting or overindulgent. It's actually very artistically interesting. Regarding this, what I guess you could call it a breakdown. I think that we're used to things, because this is very jarring. It's very aggressive and like it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant to listen to, right? But that's kind of the appeal. I think, whatever. I think it's cool. I think there might be some people who don't think it's cool, but I think that we're really used to music being like really perfect all the time and just being perfectly catered to every little thing that we like. And that when we hear something that's genuinely off-putting and genuinely like makes us just go, I think sometimes we forget that that's kind of the point of music. And that's the point of stuff that's off-putting. Like, to me, this is much more aggressive and much more violent and brutal than like most breakdowns I hear today. What's that Bring Me the Horizon song? Hold on. Oh, come on. They're going to make me go through. Okay, here we go. Like, this song here has a crazy breakdown. You hear something like that and it's like, okay, yeah, it's so much more. There's definitely a much higher level of like sophistication to something like that. It's much more technically impressive, but it's so like, I compare that to something like this. And I just don't even think it comes close. I think that Magic sounds so much more brutal, so much more heavy and aggressive, and I might be in the minority there, but I think that we forget that the point of the music is to be like, the point of something that's supposed to be off-putting or aggressive is to actually be off-putting and aggressive. I think that a lot of people in the metal community, they have this perspective of, I want my music to be heavy, but only the way that I like it. It needs to be heavy in the way that I'm used to hearing it be heavy, the breakdown better be the way that I like breakdowns, It's like, it's kind of the whole damn point of the breakdown, is to like take you by surprise, to show you something that you haven't heard, to be aggressive. And so I don't know. I feel very burnt out on the types of breakdowns like in that Bring Me the Horizon song. And so when I hear something like this, I'm like, this is cool. This is interesting. I don't know if I've ever quite heard a section like this in exactly this way, And so, yeah, and I think this is important. Like, this is almost the flip side of what I was talking about with the mix, where, artists who take risks and do things that are a little bit different, because I do think this is different. Maybe people disagree, but I think that this is a very unique sounding section. It's very different from something I would normally listen to from another band. That composition as a whole is unique to me. And I think that artists who are willing to try those different things, there are risk and reward. And so in this case, I think like the mix and what they did with the mix, not doing a conventional mix at all, that was a risk, and I don't think it paid off. But then in this case with the composition, where the way that they used, dun, 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 like these machine like staccato guitar and drums, and then just this crazy vocal effect, I think that did pay off, so there's a balance. And so personally, that's kind of the only way that you can really break new ground when it comes to music and anything, is to experiment and try new things. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And personally, I would much rather listen to artists try new things and it not quite work, but half the time maybe it doesn't work, but half the time it does, than listen to an artist who just does the same thing over and over and over and over again, and sticks to a tried and true formula on, the composition, the mix, everything. I don't want to hear that. And I don't think that those are the types of artists who last in the long run. I mean, almost, it's funny. I'm just gonna go on a killing spree here and just talk shit about all sorts of bands. But like Atreyu just released a new song today. And it's just kind of bland. Where is it? Children of Light. It's pretty bland. Here's Atreyu's new song, right? And it's like, it's just the same thing you've heard from Atreyu for years. It's nothing crazy. I mean, listen to it compared to this.
I did it. Was supposed to be. I did it all for you.
It's just the same generic crap that you've heard a million times, right? I mean, we've all heard that type of stuff. And so, yeah, the question is, I mean, what kind of artists do you want? Do you want your artists to do the same things and not take any risks? Or would you rather have the artists who are willing to take risks and sometimes they don't work out and they don't always go the way you want? Or would you rather have the artist that does the same thing, takes no risks whatsoever, and then you just get the same thing over and over again? So I do not want the same thing over again. I want artists who are adventurous and willing to try things. But even if it's my favorite band, I'm willing to say, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out. So cool. Okay. So now that that's done, we get into pre-chorus 3. Oh, hold on, I gotta get us back there. So you got that synth carrying through, that really aggressive synth going throughout this chorus. Listen to this. Oh wait, not yet.
But you wouldn't listen. Oh, maybe incapable. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, sorry. I was listening for something, but I didn't quite hear it. Yeah, okay, so they do another transition there. They do add like an extra 2 beats, just like extend that out a little bit. And you can hear like a little bit of humanity peek through in that voice. And then it's like a computer shutting down, So then we have chorus 3. It's the exact same as the all the other choruses, except for the end. I think he just holds the note out a little longer. But you wouldn't listen.
Oh, maybe incapable.
That doesn't matter. Get that little guitar sound in the left speaker. And then we get into our second post-chorus. Again, not a great section, but let's get through it. So it's all pretty much the same as the first one, but then we get this second half here, where they have some additional lyrics, and I think there's like a little bit of extra distortion in the background, but anyway, let's just play it. And that's it. That's the song. So, nothing different necessarily on the musical or the melodic end, but we get some additional lyrics to look at. And so the last lyrics are, he says, I write for me and nail on my head. I read for me when I'm dead. Unto the road, the golden way, eternal light, prophecy. So that prophecy was added. That wasn't on the first post-chorus, which I think is interesting because it kind of retextualizes the song a little bit, and especially given these last few lines. So these last lines are, They do believe in life we breathe. Eyes of the world all vanishing. Eyes of the world all vanishing. A silent mind in truth appear. Think from the end. And then the song just like shuts down. Boo, right? So what does all this mean? I think it's a little bit ambiguous, but I think it's kind of revealed a bit with the last two, where it says, a silent mind in truth appear, think from the end. So if we just start there, my interpretation of this is that it is recontextualizing this song as just a story about technology destroying us and all that shit, versus it's actually a cautionary tale about self-restraint and ambition and all of that for our species. And so he's saying, like, a silent mind in truth appear. He's telling us, like, he's saying to calm your mind, separate from all of this craziness, learn to be peaceful, and that's when you'll learn the truth. And then that, like, think from the end, that is kind of like, okay, basically that's just saying take a wider scope of what you're looking at, you know, think about your whole life, think about everything and what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, and or what you don't want to do, right? Like, think about your life from the end, and just have a broader view, and not just for your personal life, but for humanity. Like, we should all take a more holistic look at our species and the decisions that we make and what we do in order to prevent ourselves from going down this path, which is why I like that line prophecy, because I think he throws that in there to sort of, again, recontextualize this song, not as just like some crazy fictional story he's telling, but as a prophecy and a warning about what can happen if we do not change what we're doing. If we don't have some type of self-restraint and we're not careful about the technology that we develop. And I think it's very pertinent. I mean, right now when you've got, you know, Grok and Claude and ChatGPT all, you know, running our lives at this point, it's important. It's important to think about what we're doing. So yeah, I think it's a really cool way to recontextualize the song and make it less of just like a cool sci-fi story and more of like, hey, this is actually this is something real. Like, we're talking about something real here, and it's important to, you know, when you're listening to music, right? I think that's something that we miss, and this is a similar thing to the comments I made about the mix, right? Is that songs and art are supposed to be real. They're supposed to apply to us in the real world, even if it is a fictional story. That's kind of the point of art. And so, like, is that you're supposed to be able to take something from it, like a lesson that'll improve your life and make you better in the end. I think a lot of music today is basically just relegated to emotional catharsis, you know, or like we use it to just emotionally manipulate ourselves, but that's a topic for another day. Essentially though, he's just saying this is not just a fictional fun story. This is actually like a real thing, and like, you should think about it. And I kind of love it. I think it's great. And now that we're at the end of the song, I can say I think these are like really, really fantastic lyrics. Some of the more thought-provoking lyrics that M Shadows has put out, and I think that it's almost tough to, or it's easy to miss them and not understand them unless you actually read them and dive in the way that I did, which is why I like doing this. This is why I do it, you know, because after I did my analysis, you know, when I first heard this song, I was really a bit underwhelmed. I actually didn't like it straight up, and I think that's most people's reaction. But Avenged is my favorite band, and I know they do things for a reason. So I was like, all right, let's just give it some time. And it kind of clicked for me actually at the gym, like 2 or 3 days later. I was listening to it while I was bench pressing, and it was like, oh, okay, this is a pretty cool song, and I was vibing with it, but I didn't really think much about it. And then when I was taking my notes for this episode, and I was really looking into the lyrics and reading about the lyrics, I was like, damn, like, these are actually really cool lyrics, like really cool lyrics, a whole lot of depth here. You know, as I've gone through, as you know, if you've made it to the end of this episode, you know. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack. And the thing is, I mean, I could be totally off base on some of this stuff too. I mean, if you have your own interpretation, leave a like and a comment down below, you know. But like, you get what I mean. There's these lyrics are really cool, a lot to think about if you dive into them. And honestly, when I went through Reddit, one of the reasons why I just kind of wanted to talk about my own interpretation was that when I went through Reddit and I was looking at them, I mean, everyone on Reddit had a whole different view of these lyrics. Some people thought it was about Jimmy for some reason. I don't see that, but like, it's cool that people will listen to it and it'll just appeal to them in so many different ways. While still, I think, maintaining it. I don't feel like this song is so ambiguous that anyone can just adopt it to their own life or whatever. The way that like pop music does, pop music always writes about like ambiguous love. Like, I fought for you, but you weren't there. It's like that could mean like 10,000 fucking things. And pop music does that all the time so that they can appeal to as many people as possible. This song is absolutely not doing that. There was clearly an artistic vision here that they were going for. And I think that lyrically they did a great job with it. So yeah, content wise, I mean, that's the whole song. So let's just maybe talk about a couple things like in summary, right? So to sort of summarize. So yeah, this song is in conclusion, it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unmitigated technological advancement and maybe even more generally, humanity's ambition. We got to be careful, and we're getting there. Like, we're getting there really quick with all of this AI stuff. I mean, people are losing jobs. It's getting crazy. We're getting closer and closer to having the ability to just do whatever we want, whenever we want, at any time we want, just by typing it into an AI chat, and it's getting crazy, So yeah, I think that's why they wrote this song, and I think that's what this song is talking about. Yeah, the genre, it's a hard rock metal song. The song structure, I think, was pretty standard, but I do think it was a little so the song structure is pretty standard. I think my one complaint is that there was no guitar solo and that every single section was basically a vocal section. I think it's a shame. Sinister Gates is so great, and I like hearing his stuff. Now, to be fair, he did cool stuff on this song, especially during that bridge. I think it was a very cool bridge, but I like it. I like hearing him play. I like hearing the melodies he comes up with, and again, he's my favorite, so of course I'm going to be a sucker for that. So it was a little bit of a bummer to not get like a guitar solo or something, but like I still think the structure of the song was fine. Compositionally, this song was super weird. A lot of different types of grooves, tons of dissonance, a lot of distortion. I mean, basically the whole song had like distortion in the background, like just making things a little rough, even if it was just subconsciously. I think Avenged always chooses great chord progressions, and I think they did that here for sure. All of the progressions of the song are very unique and interesting, and they fit the theme, the kind of grim, foreboding theme of this song. But I do think that the song might have just been a little bit stale. I think a better way to put it is that it's, from a musical end, it's definitely less flashy than some of their other songs. So yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Regarding the mix, definitely the most controversial element of this song. I think that experimentation is great, but I think they dropped the ball here. I don't understand why they mixed it this way. And in fact, based on my best interpretation and even my most charitable interpretation of the song, it just doesn't make sense to have the vocals be so jarring and so loud in the mix, and to have the drums and the guitars be so quiet. It's very abrasive, very jarring, and I think it's a bit of a shame, because it probably turned a lot of people off to this song, before they even got the chance to dive into it and dissect it a bit, which sucks, because lyrically this is a great song. It's a great, very cryptic lyrics about humanity, temptation, ambition, and the downfall of our species, and there's a lot of cool stuff to pull from it, and they portray it in really interesting ways, and it's a shame that the mix would take away from that or keep people from really being able to fully appreciate it. yeah, thematically, I think I've talked about this, but it's, we got to be careful. We got to watch ourselves as people and as a species. If we're not, we're gonna nuke ourselves basically. And maybe it won't be us pressing the button. It'll be Grok. Yeah. So anyway, in finality, like final take on it. This song is by no means a 10 out of 10. I don't think anyone is under that impression. It's got some mistakes. I think musically it's a little bit underwhelming. The mix is not very good, but I think that the themes are really great. The lyrics are awesome. They were a lot of fun for me to go through and unpack. It's definitely the type of song that I think has more staying power than a lot of other songs. It's definitely an artistic song too, which I appreciate. Like there's artistic merit to it, I think that the sound engineering, not necessarily the mix, but the sound engineering throughout was great. I might be in the minority, but I love the effects on his vocals almost throughout the whole song, even the auto-tune in the bridge. I think it all works thematically. It's very cool. Especially those transitions in the pre-chorus into the chorus where it's like, that's all super cool. This song has a strange intensity to it. And like I said, I didn't really like it or get it until I was listening to it at the gym, like doing my bench press. And that's when it clicked. I was like, yo, this song's actually kind of intense, but maybe in a way that I'm not used to, in a way that's a little bit unconventional. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Instrumentation's bland, but the sound engineering's cool. The vocal performance is a little weird and strained and not super great, but the lyrics are brilliant. It's all over the place. So yeah, I think that this song it's cool, but that is the price of experimentation ultimately. And I think that I would rather have more songs like this that take chances and do weird things and try new things, than get, 10,000 songs like what I hear from Bring Me the Horizon, which is just a bunch of bland schlop, forgetful fucking bland schlop as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's important. This is maybe the last little point I want to make. I think as we have these apps, I want to say it's called like Suno. There's these apps that can create music now and they can do full songs in any genre. You just type the lyrics in. I think it's going to become all the more important that we as listeners and as fans change our perspective on music from like what is comfortable to what is valuable and what actually is artistic and has a message. Because what is comfortable and what is pleasant to listen to from a musical angle, it turns out is not that complicated. And AI is going to be able to do that really quickly. I mean, it already can, and it can already create songs that sound really pleasant and really nice. And so we need to remember that the point of art is to teach us things and to, have value to our lives. And that needs to be what we look at when we're listening to stuff. And so if you listened to this song and you thought, wow, this is the biggest piece of shit I've ever heard, I would ask you, obviously if you made it to the end of this episode and you're listening to me right now, there's part of you that wants to hear, that is interested in this song and wants to hear it broken down. And what I would say is, I think you're on the right track. We need stuff like this. Not to say that everything in this song is good, but we need to embrace things like this, because this is actually how we break out or how we defy AI type shit. That's the way I'm going to end this breakdown. Type shit. All right. I had one last point that I wanted to make, and I wanted to save this for the end because I didn't want to take it into account. When Avenged Sevenfold posted this song on their website, they did have a little caption with it, which was like, "Thank you, Treyarch, for letting us spend the day with you and have fun working on the song," and all that. Now, I don't want to speculate, but it makes it seem like maybe my suspicions that this mix was rushed might be true. I know for like Not Ready to Die, for example, they had a week to write that song. It's like the best song they ever wrote for Call of Duty, but they only had 7 days to do it because they were in between tours. And I know that they've been touring for the past few years. So yeah, I part of me actually does wonder if maybe they only had a couple days to work on this, and that might be one of the reasons why the mix ended up the way it is. Especially since, you know, the song had to end up on Call of Duty, and it had to, you know, the game obviously had a determined release date. So there was probably a time, like they probably had a very hard deadline and then weren't able to finalize everything. So I'm not trying to give them a way out, but they're my favorite band and I'm giving them a way out. No, yeah, I just thought that would be worth noting that there are deadlines for video games and things like that. And they did mention that they only got to spend one day with the guys at whatever company it is. I feel like it wasn't Treyarch. I feel like maybe I'm going crazy. Friends at Call of Duty. Here it is. Thanks to our friends at Call of Duty Black Ops 7 for letting us have some fun yesterday. That was what they said specifically. So I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, cool. All right. Well, there we go. Another episode in the bag. My first one in like 6 months. Holy shit. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, you know, give me a follow, give me a like. Let me know if you have any songs you want me to do. I love looking at songs that I haven't heard before. In fact, sometimes it's more fun to look at a song that I've never heard, because then it kind of puts my own little like analysis to the test and see like, okay, I have no preconceived notions or biases towards it. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and yeah, peace out.